Good evening, afternoon, or morning, whenever you happen to be, and welcome to the Season 58 SHL Entry Draft brought to you by SHN, the Simulation Hockey Network. I am Seven, Director of the League Events Team, Carolina Kraken GM, host of the SHL's talk show, and your host for tonight. I'm also joined by three of the SHN's finest draft analysts, Phalanx, co-GM of the Quebec City Citadels, Namlet, GM of the Newfoundland Berserkers, and Boom, GM of the Vancouver Whalers. And we also have Ranger Chase completing the takeover of Season 53. He's running production for us on the back end. Welcome. Thank you guys for coming out.
Good to be here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Ready to go. Let's do this thing.
Where do you guys see the first bit of the draft going? Obviously, Tampa's been on the clock for a little while now. Won't officially be on the clock for 4 more minutes. There's obviously a lot of mocks going around with Drunken Teddy first overall. Do you think that is the guaranteed lock it in, or do you think something weird might still happen?
That's got to be the lock it in pick, I think.
I don't see any surprises from that. He's been hyped to go very high in the draft probably since he created for the SMJ pretty much, so I don't see any surprises.
Yeah, there's not really anybody else that has the same combination of both being a long-term user, kind of having all his experience and background, on top of not being tied to an SHL team already. I think if you were to say that, Tig, Izzy, or any other combination of those GMs were actually available to be picked, then there could be a discussion for who might go first. But
yeah,
until then, I think it's Teddy's spot to lose.
For sure. And you see him all over the top rankings. He's up in TPE, obviously, but as you're seeing on screen now, he's on the top of Keenan's draft rankings that he pulled together. As well, I think he does well in G-Cools, honestly. He's up there in the top 5 on G-Cools rankings for defensemen as well. He's basically as sure a thing as you can get for the first overall. I guess my next question is, with it being Tampa, obviously it could go a couple different ways. They do like to trade out of 1 overall. Do you think any team, obviously a lot of teams would want to trade into 1 overall, do you think any team pulls together an offer that Tampa considers good enough?
I'm sure teams have been asking, but I think Tampa probably makes the pick here, if I had to guess.
I've heard a bit about them potentially trying to trade out, but I haven't heard anything about a deal getting close, so I think they just stay. I think they stay where they are, make the pick, and figure it out after.
I have to wonder, as a Tampa Bay, what kind of offer would you have to get to say that this would be worth moving down for? If BAP were to say, hey, here's our 3rd overall and 4th overall, is that even enough to give up on a guy like Teddy? There's a lot of value, but then there's just so more of this intangible stuff on top of that. It just makes it seem like it'd have to be one offer that makes you say yes and not even think about it.
Mm-hmm. Wait. I'm having some weird audio issues, right?
Are you? Let's find out.
Apparently I'm loud and everybody else is quiet, which is an easy fix, honestly. I'll just up everybody real quick.
Hi, Gabe. I love your voice, too. Just shouting out to my fans there.
We'll see if that looks any better. It's officially 5 o'clock. Tampa, you are on the clock. Good luck. Have fun. We'll see what happens.
Let's get this show on the road, Tampa.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard Nam talk in a long time, and Nam and Boom both have good speaking voices.
I don't think I've ever heard Boom talk at all.
Yeah,
like at any point.
we were.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've heard Boom's voice.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been on the call.
Yeah.
We've obviously got a lot of, as we were talking about on Hockey Talk tonight, we have a lot of first gens in the or first gen / ISFL guys. Where do you see the first one going off the board, and who do you guys think it is?
I honestly, I think it could be as early as 2.
Yeah.
Like there are pretty good. There's so many really good ISFL guys in this draft,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I think any of them are probably going to be a really good pick.
I think with how things have changed with more and more inter-sim league sort of migration, the term first gen just almost seems disingenuous now. Like, is it just first generation to SHL? Is that enough to make a difference, or is it just sim league first gen?
Yeah. The idea of what a first gen is definitely kind of changing. The pick is in. We are waiting for it to be announced, we'll say. Does that sound loud? I'll turn it down. Come on, Tampa.
It's very possible some of that hissing might be on my end, so I'm just going to bounce for a second to see if it is, and I'll be back.
Any of the what?
There's some feedback going on. I don't know if that's an issue that I've had with my mic in particular.
No, it'd be mine because I'm
Okay.
not hearing it.
All right.
And the pick is officially in. First overall, as everybody expected, Drunken Teddy, Luke Bowen. Obviously, Tampa's collected all of these first round picks, and they didn't need to spend more than one to get this guy, but everybody in Tampa is probably celebrating the lottery win and the opportunity to bring Teddy into the locker room. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably been, like everybody said, anticipated since the very start of them winning the first overall pick. You really kind of have to feel for San Francisco, I believe, who had the best odds.
Yeah.
They still had something like 75% chance to not win the draft or something along those lines, but
Mhm.
to still not get it and miss out on a player like this, it's a shame. But Tampa Bay really, really gets lucky here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, I would have guessed probably 95% of the mocks had Teddy here. I think the bigger surprise is honestly that Tampa held on to the pick. I'm sure that Hamilton being at 5th overall, there's a lot of Hamilton being at 5th overall, they could probably put together an enticing offer to get him back. There's a lot of different options. Second overall, coming in pretty quick. Yep, it's already there. Give us one moment because the top of the draft went super fast.
To be expected though, when you have the first pick locked in, it's
Yeah.
unfortunately not quite like the J draft due to a certain somebody, but
Yeah.
when you know number one, everything else just starts falling in place bit by bit.
Mm-hmm. Second overall is officially, as I guess a lot of people also guessed, Gregory Good, Keenan out of Anchorage. Did great work this season. Got the bank, got the TPE. Obviously doesn't have the title of site owner, but definitely a tier 1 What do you guys make of this?
I like this pick a lot for San Francisco, especially with the expansion defenseman, or especially something that got spread thin. So
Mm-hmm.
never a bad time to get a really proven recreate into the locker room, especially with the teardown that we saw a few seasons ago. And I think he'll be really good for the Pride.
Mm-hmm. No, he's definitely
I know that when
Go ahead.
sorry, I was just saying that when Anchorage had the opportunity to select him 19th overall in the JD draft, Gabe was extremely surprised to see somebody of that quality being available there.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of shows that, despite what some J teams might have missed out on at the time, he's really kind of come into his own in terms of proving that, having the recreate title is one thing, but also showing for it between becoming the PT head just recently, putting out some media, and just kind of really showing a bit more of themselves on the site recently.
Mm-hmm. Baltimore's picks are also coming in hot. I do think that, honestly, defensemen with expansion are going to be a much higher priority, but we're at a weird spot where there's almost fewer high-end forwards because, like, the people that are familiar with the league are pushing for, like, defensemen a little bit more frequently, trying to be that in-demand position. Like, I think you're seeing almost a slight decline in forwards at this point compared to the norm. As the chat's already figuring out, the Baltimore picks are in. Third overall to Baltimore, none other than our first gen Mewtwo out of Ziegel, first gen ISFL guy. That title's a little bit weird. Ziegel's definitely a big name guy to get for Baltimore. Flex, you had Ziegel on your team, obviously. Tell me a little bit more about him.
Flex is off the call, but he was also on my DSFL team, and he's super great in the locker room, and really like this pick for Baltimore, especially he's a winger, which they don't have as many of in the system, but they got a good one here.
Yeah, no, Baltimore is definitely super deep through centers, and obviously they can flex out to wings, but it's not a smooth transition. There's obviously that TPE loss to face-offs, etc. Did Flex say where he was going?
I said something about his power.
His power went, Jesus. All right.
Yeah. On that point that you were talking about earlier about how it seems like there's that slight imbalance of forwards now moving over to the defense, I'd have to see for the most recent create classes if that seems to be the case, but at least for the ones that are coming up, or at least like players that are coming into their own, starting to be those second, first line players, there seems to be enough forwards, I think, that eventually you'll again get to that point where it kind of cycles back.
Yeah.
But lately, though, yeah, it really does seem like if you can find a good defenseman, they are worth more than their weight in gold.
And fourth overall is also in, and as expected for Baltimore, they are continuing to load up on centers. They have taken legendary SHL user at this point, JT3, Noel Blanchett. JT3, great dude, said that we couldn't land him in Carolina or get him to come back to Los Angeles. I really enjoyed getting to spend a couple seasons on a team with him. I'm glad that he got to come back and end his last player's career with us. What do you guys think about JT3? This also confirms the mock draft prop of recreates in the top couple picks.
Yeah, so we have I think the over already confirmed on recreates in the top 6. So if you've picked that for your mock, congrats. If you forgot to get in your mock, then that's really unfortunate. But I really haven't had too much experience with JT3 in the locker room. The most it would have been just in our kind of pre-draft talks in our draft last season.
Yeah.
And even then, just in that small amount of time, I knew instantly that he was going to be a great person that anybody would have the privilege and honor of being able to spend some time with, just because he seems like that kind of individual that you would want to get to know, and you'd be able to, happily be able to chat day to day. So for Baltimore to be able to add a presence like that in their locker room seems like a really big win for them.
For sure.
Yeah, I got to interact with JT3 since he was also on the Blizzard towards the end of his career for a bit there, and same with Cam, just super friendly, great locker room guy, and Baltimore making another great pick here.
Picks again coming fast and furious, getting a little bit ahead of what we're doing on stream, of course. The 5th overall pick is in and just went up as we pull that together. Out of Maine, we see more ISFL guys. Hamilton picking up Dogwood Maple. Dude's cranked out a ton of media in his first season in the SHL. Really made a name for himself. Obviously, we don't have Flex isn't as active in Maine anymore, so you can't tell us as much about him. Are either of you guys familiar with him from the ISFL?
Not too much. I had kind of seen the same stuff that he had put out in the ISFL in terms of media over here. In some ways, you could kind of say that, hey, it's one formula that he's repeated in having Twitter-based media, but honestly, it's still a unique idea that I don't think a lot of other people have done in terms of trying to get community engagement.
Yeah.
There's a small thing of just being like, hey, tell me you want to be in my media piece and I'll put you in, and everybody's suddenly clamoring to be in there, and he's got these really long pieces where on one hand maybe there isn't that quote unquote originality of trying to create content, but now you've got so many other people wanting to be in there, checking it out, and then wanting to be in the next one. I think he's done something like 5+ pieces of that particular tweeting media series. So yeah, to have that kind of bank, there's work put in on his end.
No, it's he's definitely, like, I had no idea who he was. I hadn't joined the ISFL until this past season. I had no idea who he was, and he came over and like immediately started turning my head as somebody that has to pay attention a lot to first gens and people coming in from to rookies in the SMJHL. I really liked what I heard from him and what I saw from him. Obviously expected to be a top pick and came true there. Good.
I haven't been personally familiar with his media, but I remember being really impressed by it leading up to the SMJHL scouting period. I saw just the volume that he was putting out was so impressive. And as for Hamilton, they don't actually have a center prospect in the system, so I like this pick for them too, stocking up for the future at another good position.
The 6th overall pick is now in. We saw New Orleans begin to load up on a lot more picks and begin their retooling. This is continuing into this season with their top 6, or their 6th overall pick, Friedensreich Hernswasser, one of the couple Austrians that created from the ISFL. Asked Madden, another dude that's come in and just been all over the place, grinding out media, grinding out TPE, leads the class in TPE, had an absolute bruiser of a player, leading all rookies in penalty minutes. Definitely was a huge steal for St. Louis. Have you guys had a chance to interact with him much? He's one of the guys that's in Dallas in the ISFL, right, Boom?
True, I haven't. I did spend some time with him before I recreated as my TSFL player, so I haven't talked to him in a while, but I do remember him being very active in the locker room and a very good voice in there.
you'll have to remind me on who we're talking about. I was just trying to look for that Hamilton trade that brought them 5th overall and just remind myself in that detail.
Yeah, that was Ast Madden as Friedensreich Herdenswasser.
Yeah, that particular guy I have not heard too much of. If anything, I think I don't have any recollection of personal experience, even just talking in a drafting capacity.
Yeah.
Just seeing his name right up there into the TP list just always makes me think, how is it that I've never even got a chance to chat with him in any shape or form?
Mm-hmm. Although it's obviously this class is a little weird with Drunken Teddy at the top of it, but it's kind of demonstrating that shift in league mentality of like TPE not being everything. Like you're not just going down the TPE listings to list off picks.
Do you think that has been a strong viewing? Like, not necessarily to say that that's what GM did to have their end all be all for picks, but it did seem like there was at least that distinction of saying, hey, personality wise, how well will they fit? Will they actually be someone that sticks around more than just the TPE number?
Mm-hmm.
I know that for one example, one draft pick that kind of gets looked back with some question marks in Chicago was, I believe it was Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
He was one of the highest TPE earners at the time, and a lot of people were kind of wondering, like, why is it that despite him being on the board when Chicago had the opportunity to draft him, they just went over it. And that was one of those instances where, unfortunately, the fit just wasn't there mutually.
Mm-hmm.
So despite, it would have been, by all accounts, just by a TPE standpoint, to be the right pick, it just never worked out for that reason.
Yeah. We actually have, to build on that, our first non-300 TPE player off the board with 7th overall coming in from Buffalo. And that is Beanman, or Seymour Snatches, out of Anchorage. Obviously right up on the 300 TPE level, but again, continuing that idea of looking more at what they bring to the table outside of TPE. Beanman, another ISFL dude, I think, played a huge role for Anchorage this season in what turned out to be a cup season for them. His player performed really well this rookie season. Are either of you guys familiar with him from the ISFL? Because I, again, am not.
I'm definitely one of the last persons that
that's fair. Like
emotionally and mentally inactive over there. I'll just show up and then do my things. And somehow things have changed, like a new sim engine or whatever.
You log on and there's a new sim engine. Yeah. No, Beanman seemed like a well-spoken of person. I haven't had the chance to interact with him. It's been weird to leave the reins a little bit of scouting to my co-GM and my scouts in Carolina, so I don't get to talk to every single player anymore. That's a little bit weird. But I've heard him highly spoken of. I think it's a good fit for Buffalo. Again, that's just astounding that they have a top 10 pick, but
somehow one of the final 4 teams in the league in terms of whether standings or playoffs, yet they're still able to pick up a player of this quality. The SHL somehow does it.
The SHL continues to enable the Great Lakes. More at 11.
I mean, we did just see Hamilton finish in first place by a mile and then select at 5th.
Yeah.
I do remember when Seymour Snatches, I think, first came onto the site, the whole Meet the GMs chat and everything. They were not shy about putting their face out there. I think they were the one who had some graphics that were very much like, your team could be here.
I do remember that. That was actually really cool. Yeah, I really liked that. The Tampa Bay pick for number 8 is in, out of Carolina. Ratsbua, Finn von Murfenstein. Rats has obviously made a huge name for himself in the ISFL and in the SHL now. A good bit of this production has been due to his sort of emergency hiring in the past couple weeks for the events team. He's been a huge help in this regard. He's earning at the top of the class, been an absolute gem to have in the locker room. We talk a lot about cooking. He's a fun guy. His dog is gorgeous. I love this pick, and I was honestly concerned when I saw a lot of mocks with him and a midships falling out of the top 10, just with the amount of value you're getting from them as a player. So it seems just insane but I guess that's how the entire class is. Like, you've got a really deep first round.
Yeah, I think other people brought it up either through podcasts or other venues, but the whole introduction of rookie task, with this being the first class that has that benefit and or access to it, has really made, whether it is a quote-unquote first gen or a recreate coming in for the first time, just have access to way more cash than they even need.
Yeah.
To the point where a lot of them will have some leftover, maybe not quite enough to cover for full equipment or coaching for next season, but still just enough to really put themselves at the top if they've been there putting in the time.
No, it's a lot easier to hit 300 as a rookie just by coming in and seeing the site, which is nice because like you don't have to do a lot to see yourself become a productive player at first. It does get harder from a SHL GM's perspective, I'm sure, to see, okay, which of these guys are really going to stick when it comes time to like make a little bit more money and like keep earning, or which ones are going to get kind of disinterested with the effort that it takes.
With this particular pick, and I think you could say this with any ones that Tampa makes, but they have an interesting decision to make in a few seasons for defensemen.
Yeah,
they currently have Hammer, Cuddles, and Jerickson on the roster who are all active. They recently called up Lambert, Igor Victory, and Dubalk.
Yeah.
So that's 6 active defensemen. They moved on from Baronoff to Winnipeg, but now they drafted another 2 defensemen.
Yeah.
So down the road, there's going to be a tough question for sure.
For sure, and we can talk a little bit more on that in a second. Atlanta's pick is in. I think this one was another one that was pretty common in mocks, but Lepish heading out to Atlanta, Pavel Jesiak. Another one of those longtime SHLers. Obviously, like with that kind of reputation, the sub 290 TPE is not going to be that big of a deal. They're a stand-up dude. I enjoyed talking to them and getting to know them a little bit better as I was scouting for Carolina this past season. To be able to make a pick like this so late in the draft feels really good.
Yeah, Lep hangs around Vancouver's locker room a lot.
Yeah.
Just a joy to talk to. It was pretty fun to have him in there during our playoff series against Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and his player was on Atlanta before, so he's already it's
yeah. He was one of the expansion picks that they made in Atlanta, isn't he?
Seems like for once the draft is firing along really quickly.
Oh no, it's flying. I actually wasn't fully prepared for it, and we are getting a little bit of the spoilers, but it's not too hateful. And as I say that, more picks just keep coming in. But as we were talking about Tampa a little bit earlier, it makes a lot of sense that you would see. It's very easy to imagine a world where Trella or Dwight would position swap if they loaded up on people that they liked and wanted to keep around. If they needed to like move Dwight Knight from forward to defenseman or Ambicus Cuddles to forward to make room for these players. They're both the kinds of guys that would do that, I would think. And it's definitely a tool in their arsenal.
All right, who we got next?
Yeah, the pick is in for Calgary. That is Richard Lafleur, Kierkegaard. A guy that Izzy knows pretty well from Kelowna at this point. Had a good rookie season, might be in the Rookie of the Year contention. We haven't seen those nominees go up yet, but you could expect to see his name kind of as a really good scoring defenseman for Kelowna. But Kierkegaard is a pretty solid pick here. Again, just getting a well-earning defenseman at this point in the draft feels great. Obviously, there's enough to go around, but it's got to feel good from Calgary's perspective to put this pick down.
Yeah, they really have a need for everybody, just because their core is aging.
For sure.
Unfortunately, the last high defenseman that they took, off the top of my head, with it being Bradley Barkov not panning out, kind of hurt. So hopefully this is going to be somebody else that will be able to make up for it. Plus, he also puts out some great videos, so that's a little detail that I'm sure that hasn't gone unnoticed.
Yeah, no, his he did a little highlight video for himself. I think yesterday it came out, and that's got to be a last minute way to shoot up the draft boards in some regards, like getting a nice little payout. Obviously, he wasn't in the red for money or anything, but that's definitely a way to get some attention.
Yeah, Blues is right. Chris Goodname is, I guess, the most recent one that they did pick.
He's still around, isn't he?
He is. He seems to maybe not be earning as quickly.
Okay.
We do have, I believe it was Jala with Tsuchimo Zoidberg.
Oh, yeah. Zoidberg was...
the year after that?
Yeah, so they've been loading up on defensemen for the last couple seasons.
We actually have our next pick in from Atlanta, and it's our first UDFA off the board already. That would be Z-Wiz or Puddles O'Duck. Obviously, another ISFL dude. So the concern of being a UDFA isn't, as drastic. They're pretty familiar with sim leagues. They've earned well. They joined right after the draft. I remember talking to them, trying to get them signed as a free agent. Before the season even started. You also were, I remember that. But it's considering him a UDFA is a pretty loose one. He only missed out on the pre-draft TPE. Pretty chill dude. ISFL GM, pretty down to earth, and you kind of know what you're getting from this kind of pick.
And let's face it, how can you say no to bringing a duck to the teams full of otters?
Yeah, no, they all play in the pool together, right?
Exactly. It's going to be interesting. They're going to have an Animorphs team where you've got an otter scoring on you, a duck scoring on you. So the next thing they'll have...
there were the Dolphin brothers a couple seasons back. What's up?
I was just saying that whoever else that creates as any sort of animal, we're going to create that line right to Atlanta.
The Atlanta Zoo, basically.
Pretty much.
We've got Manhattan's pick in as we're loading in the resources. Again, the first round, honestly, flying. I was told that we'd have a little bit more time for this, right? We're gonna be done before 6:30, 7 o'clock. I actually have to eat dinner at normal time.
I think I've already had a pick, a little bit down the lines. I've already had spoiled for me, so.
Yeah. Actually, this was also not Manhattan's pick. This was whatchamacallit? The Spectres traded with Manhattan. That trade was posted. We don't have it ready to show, but we have Manhattan trading out of the 12th overall down to 18, and also getting New Orleans' second from the next draft.
I think we'll start to see a trend with some of these picks with New Orleans, but I guess I'll wait to kind of comment on that further. But they are certainly buying their way into this particular draft as hard as they can.
Yeah, and it's a little. It's easy to determine why, as we get to announce it real quick. That would be. Is that right? Okay, yeah, that is right. 12th overall is Nikolaj Boyle, straight out of
Brooks
Brooklyn.
Nikolaj.
Yeah, it's not Nikolaj, but
Nikolaj.
yeah.
Yeah.
Zane ZK out of the ISFL as well. And what we were talking about with the trend, especially in this class, is that Joe's a long time ISFL GM as well. So there's a lot of GMs and power users in the ISFL that Joe has a pretty good reputation with, especially because a lot of them came over from a subset of teams. Joe just got drafted to Dallas as well in the DSFL in the draft for the season that's just starting up. So it makes a lot of sense. He knows a lot of people in this class. It makes sense for him to buy in. I wouldn't be surprised if more of that happened. But yeah, it's a very good fit for Zane to go to New Orleans, I think.
Yeah, Zane's been super great in our locker room. He had a really good playoff run for us. So I quite like this pick for New Orleans. They'll be getting a pretty fast winger.
Mm-hmm.
Can never go wrong with those.
I mean, I'm a fan of fast wingers. As I've taunted Fuzz with the idea that I'm just going to buy my way up to 20 speed soon. Joe in the chat saying he ran out of things to trade. Gave away the kitchen sink while he was at it. The pick is in from Texas. We are looking at Basil Sievart, user Sievart, out of Colorado. Somebody that I'm not super familiar with. I don't know if either of you guys are. I've seen them around enough to know that I know the name, but not necessarily the person behind the name.
I've seen them be quite active in the media area, turning out some pretty good quality pieces in there. I'm just not familiar with them as a user. Other than that.
Yeah, no,
Likewise.
Yeah, I've seen the media, but not necessarily gotten to interact with them much.
I want to say their main other league is PBE,
Okay.
which I find that we don't quite have the same sort of like overt presence. When we hear about somebody from the ISFL, it's like the first thing we bring up, whereas somebody could be in the PBE and it's not really that well known about.
Yeah, there's not as obviously there's some, but there's not a big connection between the two leagues. Obviously there's the affiliate TPE, but that's kind of it as far as you don't see the same waves of people creating across leagues.
Also, we have a correction from the chat. Sievart he wasn't a free agent. He was a first-round pick.
He was? Huh. It must have not. Yeah, I just copied the draft forum post, so maybe something went wrong there. That's my bad. We have our next New Orleans pick in. And it's another ISFL, as I don't give you guys the sound alert this time. A midships, Olsen out of Carolina. We brought him and Rotson together. They've both been fantastic personalities to have, as I mentioned. I think there was a slight hope that from Winnipeg that he'd be available at 15th. Obviously, him and Kai are pretty close, but Ships is a 10 out of 10 dude. I knew basically from the minute I got to talk to him in the scouting for the J draft that I wanted him at 10th overall, and somehow managed to get that to happen. So yeah, big fan of him. Obviously, Overdue being my co-GM and him knowing Ships pretty well at this point makes that pick for New Orleans even easier than Joe knowing him pretty well. So I think it's a very obvious pick. I would expect it to be in the mocks of people that had the knowledge of who knows who in the league.
Yeah, another pick. We had a midships in our locker room as an unrostered player for the playoff run in season 56. He's great guy, and he'll be going to a place with people he knows in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Toronto apparently owns the 27th pick, so I've fixed that at least. Sorry, ML. But yeah, as we mentioned, Winnipeg is on the clock now. I believe the pick has already been made. Let me go confirm that.
At this rate, next draft will be already starting. It's actually shockingly quick.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, we are closing in at least on how quickly GM chat is moving. But yeah, Winnipeg is in. The first pick as the Winnipeg Aurora. Another guy that amidships in the ISFL crew know pretty well. Zane Ratsbua, obviously named after Rats himself, the user inverted, the former GM in Dallas for the DSFL. He was in Vancouver. Boom, you know him pretty well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he's really active for us, and we were really happy that we were able to get him in the second round back in the SMJHL draft. But he's been his player is fitting into that mold really well. He's just a big, bruising defenseman,
Mm-hmm.
and I know Cambrack is also in Winnipeg along with Enigmatic. So
Yeah, no, that's a very solid core of Dallas-based defensemen to build up.
even remember with Dallas, even when we had one really down season a couple of seasons ago, the locker room was still really chill, and I know that group was really close, so it makes sense that they're all clumping up, I guess.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense for sure, and you see that every once in a while, players coming over in batches. Like a bunch of us Carolina guys went over to the ISFL in a batch, and like you see a lot of them not necessarily wanting to stay together or asking for it, but the teams that are aware of it like try to pair them up as best they can, because like bringing somebody into your locker room across a new league, like they're not going to be as engaged as their primary league. So to do that, to bring them into a situation where they already know a good number of people is always a positive. The Buffalo, with their second first rounder of the draft, as appalling as that might be, on the clock again. I believe the pick just came in as well, or it came in like a minute or two ago. Yep, there it is. Billy Brooks, Super TARDIS 101 out of Newfoundland. Ham, what can you tell me about Billy?
That unfortunately Buffalo gets who I think the second highest TP player at 17 or 16, which seems absolutely ridiculous. Not to mention the fact that this is their second pick, so maybe I'll try to...
The second in the class in TPE as a defenseman going at 17.
I didn't chat with them originally leading up to the J draft.
Yeah.
But a lot of my kind of War Room members had been really pushing for this guy, saying that, based on where we were, if he's the one that falls out, then we're still like more than happy to take him. And it just worked out that way, that he was literally the last person available in kind of our top section of our board.
Mm-hmm.
He's the kind of guy that I think when he has the time, he'll be a force in the locker room. I think he's been pretty busy with some of his stuff that he does for GMing and PBE.
Oh, he's a PBE GM?
Yeah, PBGM. Okay. I think he's actually Joe Koji GM.
Okay.
One of the two. But it's actually kind of interesting that he didn't end up in New Orleans, but maybe he just wants to keep that ISFL trend instead.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, that's a hard decision to make. You've got your DSFL GM or your co-GM that you're already super tight with, and like it's. I mean, Joe's obviously got a pretty rough decision, and Buffalo's incredibly happy for what they're getting at the end of the first round, basically.
Yeah.
Calm down, Windows. Okay. Yeah, so not quite our interpretation of the PB, I guess. But yeah, we have the 17th overall pick coming in from New England, I believe. And it's honestly one that I expected to happen, as we were obviously Flex isn't here, but he and I were talking our last minute mocks, and we both were like, yeah, no, Johnny Tsunami makes a lot of sense to New England, and that's what they ended up doing. One of the top guys in TPE in the league, again, falling pretty far. A main dude, so there's that Zima connection that you're seeing a lot of co-GMs that are familiar or like recently in their J teams with guys that they know pretty well. Zima still being in Maine gets to know those guys pretty well. But Johnny's one of the true first gens that's earning really well in the class.
I think he also might have a PB background.
Oh, does he? Oh.
Yeah, so trying to find a true first gen.
Yeah,
there's someone coming up, but it's hard.
Yeah. Nah, Tsunami is one of the ones I didn't get to talk to as much. From what I have heard of how he is as a person, it makes a lot of sense. Like, he's apparently been a good fit in Maine, and I think he'll be a good fit in New England, but I can't say that I know him personally well.
An interesting thing that I'm just noticing now about New England is they have a lot of prospects. They have like a dozen. So
yeah, no, they've slowly been hitting that rebuild real hard. Obviously,
they do with all.
Yeah, they moved out a number of higher end guys to kind of do a retool a couple seasons ago, and that's coming along for them nicely. Honestly, the Atlantic Division as a whole is pretty terrifying. Or the future of the Atlantic Division is pretty terrifying. We're now at Manhattan's pick from. Manhattan's pick from the New Orleans trade that they made before, and that was
originally Chicago. Looks like it was moved to New Orleans in a deal.
What's up?
Yeah, it was traded from Chicago to New Orleans, and then.
Oh, okay.
I think almost immediately after moved to Manhattan.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, how did? So Manhattan received the Chicago first, yeah. Wait, no, it was just Chicago's. Chicago traded to NOLA, and then NOLA traded it, yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, that is who a number of us expected to go to Manhattan to begin with. 18th overall, Thomas Lind, Canada's out of Carolina. Obviously, I think that actually is the... I don't know for sure about the rest of the first round, but he is actually a first gen to sim leagues as a whole. Somebody that when he posted his first media piece in the leading up to the J draft, I was like, I've got to get this guy on my team. I remember I think both of you were like, yeah, that's exactly who Seven's going to target in the draft. He's a European user, so he's not always active in the locker room at the same time as a lot of the rest of the team, but he's a super smart, like wickedly smart dude. Has actively started to contribute to the SHN a little bit. Got involved with that probably in his first week or two in the league. Really enjoyable person. Makes a lot of sense that with the SHN that Luke got to know him pretty well, and then JY got to know him pretty well. Great fit. I think a lot of people were mocking him to go at 12 to Manhattan, but Manhattan getting to trade down and still get their guy is a definite win for them.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said about Luke and those who can make graphs, but technically Luke's not there anymore, and it sounded like he was pushing very hard for a certain alien sim league or so. Surprised it didn't happen. I think with this particular pick being the last one of the first round, it seals that the junior teams that had the most first round picks made is actually a tie.
Okay.
Between Carolina and Maine.
Okay.
3 each.
I was honestly not expecting to have the most. I figured we'd have the 3, but I figured like another team would have a 4. So that's. Go ahead.
It's like I put Vancouver. I knew that we'd probably have Boyle and Roxburgh in the first round, but I thought many hands would go as well. So
Yeah.
wasn't to see him still up there, but
Uh,
on to the ones.
yeah, getting onto the second round. But what I guess is your guys' biggest surprise of the first round while we wait for the St. Louis pick to get announced, or not St. Louis, the San Francisco pick.
I don't know if there's that many surprises. I know that a lot of people really had a tough time trying to mock it, but it seems to have kind of gone the way that at least the circles that I was in predicted it would be.
Yeah.
Maybe the toughest one was Billy Brooks or Super Tardis, because he was such a tough one to nail down. You know, he has the TPE to be part of the conversation in the top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
But there just didn't seem to be a place to put him that you couldn't make an argument for somebody else. So Buffalo seems to take advantage of the fact that everybody else decided they wanted their guy, and instead they get to pick up a lot of value at 16.
Agreed. I'd say Billy Brooks falling all the way to 16 with that TP would be the surprise.
San Francisco's pick is in, and it is everybody's favorite alien, Narboza Many Hands. Boom, what can you tell me about this dude?
Absolutely hilarious in the locker room. Really, really good player, and yeah, it's almost reminds me of, like, for those who know Andre, who has a character and just plays it so well.
Yeah.
And yeah, San Francisco's gonna love him in that locker room.
He's an absolute wild character. He's like, he even asks podcast questions to Hockey Talk Tonight in character. Has he broken character yet, or are we saving? Like, Andre lasted a while before ever slipping.
Nope, he still hasn't. He has still, like, not broken character in a whole season.
Jeez, yeah. No, he seems like an absolute riot. I've enjoyed the in character media as far as describing the bizarre experiences of an alien on Earth. Also, rest in peace, John Toner, retired from the league and has fallen victim to his research. But yeah, an absolute gem of a pick that you can make, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Just hilariously entertaining, super engaged with the league, honestly, too. Like, he's not just like he's like fully committed to the league and like earning well, but having a unique take on how he's doing it as well. Keegan saying he can't break character if there's no character to break. Do you guys think we've actually been taken over by aliens?
I'd like to see him and Andre in a room.
What if Andre is an alien and this is his multi in character?
The man has many talents. I would not be one to put it past him.
Tampa Bay on the clock. I think the pick just came in. I was actually honestly surprised with the trades that we saw this season in like the first round as well. I thought that a lot of people would be like, yeah, the first round's value is pretty steady, which I guess makes it cheap to move around, but also, like, do you have a need to move around?
With that whole discussion about, like, you know, how can you know if these prospects are going to be in it for the long run when they haven't been tested and having to see an empty bank account, and if they're willing to put in the effort. I think it comes down to the person or that connection that you know more of. So somebody like Nola with Joe K having more of a connection outside of this league and being able to kind of poke and prod and be like, hey, you
Mm-hmm.
should do a little more updating, or you should. It looks like you're running low on money or whatever. That's something that adds an extra layer of security to hopefully, make these picks worth their while in the long run.
Yeah. No, it's honestly a little weird because like I would assume that with with all the different GMs knowing different people and like having different experiences with people, like there's not a lot of like true first gens. There's a lot of people with like solid enough reputations that you understand like who would be a good fit. It's surprising that like the GMs all have like different valuations of players and they all know it. So why not like let it ride and hope that they like one of the guys that you have your eye on slip?
It's tough just because there's
sure.
so many of them in that group that you could have a few, or maybe you have a certain collection and you feel like, hey, they're going to be taken in this area, so I'll just snap them up and kind of let it ride from there.
Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay's pick is here. It is Hunter Sharp out of St. Louis, username Iolo. I want to say that's also a true first gen, but also I'm prepared to be fully wrong there.
I have to look into them. I know that they're from St. Louis as their junior team, right?
Yeah.
I remember this pick from when this guy from when we were studying for the J draft, because when we did the interested prospects thread, he responded with this huge like paragraph length wall of text.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of when we were
an impression maker for sure.
Yeah, it was just going to be like this guy's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I do see that they were referred by Captain Crazy. I don't know. It also seems like they've also referred a few other people into the league as well. I think that there's some current prospects that were kind of brought into them because of this particular user. So it seems like they're invested. If you're able,
if you're bringing your
people
in for sure.
Yeah, so it's no longer just the conversation you have on your phone on one app. It's now actually a conversation you're having with people, and that adds an extra layer of commitment and time spent on the SHL. As if most of us don't already spend too much as it is.
Mm-hmm. Chicago's pick is in. Somebody that apologies. Somebody that actually was expected to go higher in some circles. I know Keenan had him really high. Nike Kicks Jr. to out of Newfoundland to Chicago. There's definitely a pipeline there. It's been there for a little while. Ham being one of the recent products of it. What's your? How do you like having Nike around for this season, and what do you think Chicago's getting?
Nike's been around for a while in the league, so it's one of those things where J&H, especially being a member of Chicago as well as somebody who's just knows everybody and knows somebody from somebody, being able to kind of recognize, hey, these are some great people to bring in, pointed out that Nike was one of them. So we were thankful to be able to pick up Nike in something like the 4th round. Yeah, and he's been great. Just, when he's been around, he's just there chatting. I think he's big about baking bread lately. So the fact that he's able to go into Chicago, where he pointed out, I think, as his number one spot that he wanted to go in kind of a pre-draft ranking, it's got to feel pretty good for him as well. And I know that everybody else in Chicago was pretty pumped for somebody that could have been taken in the 1st round, but we were able to pick up much later.
Minnesota on the clock now. They didn't have their 1st round. They're in a little bit of a weird transition period where they had an aging core and not a 1st round pick in this draft. What do you think is their biggest need overall?
This is for Minnesota?
Yeah.
Is there an answer that's not everything? No, that's not. They have goaltending.
Yeah.
They have, or at least had, like a great first line.
Yeah.
Right up until Gallagher recently kind of retired. I say out of the blue for me, just because I didn't know about it, but it seems like it was something that might have been kind of humming.
Yeah. No, I think they were aware of it. But what if I told you they could, with the 22nd overall pick, pick up a 320 TPE player because that's Danny C out of Kelowna.
Okay.
Falling pretty far considering the TPE that they brought into the draft. Like Minnesota's got to be pumped about this. Didn't get to talk to him very much in the scouting process, but really has shown a propensity for earning. Like again, not familiar with everybody in the PBE, but I think this guy might be a PBE dude with the render choice.
Right. Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
feel like Minnesota's kind of had that, has a little bit of that, not reputation, or if it's just like how circumstances worked out for them.
Yeah.
But I know in our draft class, Rocco Burney was a guy who was right up there in terms of TPE, but just kept falling and falling just because of some uncertainties about how long he'd stick it through. And so far, he's kind of past 1,300 TPE.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? I think they picked up Han.
Yeah.
They swapped for, I'm not even going to say the full name, Captain Crazy. So they've been picking up a lot of great value of players who just dropped.
Yeah, like players
That's
that like kind of get overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, and they have, a lot more to try to fill along the way, but these are great things to hit on. You just need a little bit more on top of it, and then they can really start to say, hey, they've got something coming together.
Mm-hmm. Seattle's going back-to-back here. The first one is now in. Again, like St. Louis, as we thought, was going to have a lot of players in the first round. These guys seem to be just slipping to the top of the second round, so apologies to everybody if you're like me and pick St. Louis to have all the first rounders. But Daryl Urquhart, Urk660 out of St. Louis to Seattle. Signed as a UDFA, I think, because apparently that code might be wrong.
That's definitely right.
I thought I remembered talking to him post draft a little bit, but yeah, St. Louis had a big class, and a lot of them are actually turning out pretty well. I'm happy to see that for him as even as a rival in the division. He seems like he'll be a good fit for Seattle. They're obviously, if they don't give him, all the Detroit people there don't give him too much for being from St. Louis.
Yeah, he being a UDFA, I remember kind of seeing his progress early on.
Yeah,
there was some questions about, is this somebody that's going to make it through in their first week or so? Because quite often that's where a lot of people just decide to drop out.
Yeah, especially as a UDFA, that can be kind of rough.
Yeah, they just kept it up, and St. Louis really found a nice deal between being a UDFA and seemingly out of the blue.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys miss the second round mock at all? Obviously, it's nice to have a little bit more certainty.
No.
Yeah. I kind of do. It was just an absolute crapshoot, but it was nice to. It was just a pure coin flip TPE, basically. But
yeah, totally, it's fun, and just being like, I'm gonna throw something at the wall and just hope it sticks. So then, if you get a couple, you feel really good about it.
Mm-hmm. And
then there's just so many tosses that it was exhausting. To be like, okay, how close is this one?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
On our draft, where I think I got 4 or 5 picks in the second round correct, and that was just a complete miracle.
Yeah, no, that was wild, honestly. Our second Seattle pick of 2 is in. I wish Flex was here to tell us a little bit more about him. I didn't get his reaction, but it's Vandy Brian Davenport out of QCC. Flex obviously knows him very well, but can't chime in right now. Vandy's been around the league for a little while. Pretty chill dude. Obviously, Buffalo was probably eyeing him, but it just kind of was a weird spot for them in the draft and couldn't make that happen. Grok, though, knows Vandy well, both being in Buffalo for a little while. I think that's a big driver of the pick. I think he'll be a good fit for a burgeoning Seattle team. What's your guys' spin on this?
Vandy was who recruited me to the league, so that's Ray. know him from.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Seattle's getting a really good pick here. Although he does keep getting like all of Buffalo to send me Mark Messier gifs, so there's that.
Harassing you a little bit with them.
Yeah, I think it was like right after the J draft, but yeah, it's just a running gag at this point.
No, Vandy's definitely a cool dude. I'm in the QCC locker room, and I pop in every once in a while, and he seems well liked and like he's having a good time. So I think Seattle's getting a good pick there. I think like the people that Seattle have all know him pretty well. It seems like a solid location for him to fall to.
My only question, and I think we really need to bring this person to task, is who spells Brian Bryan? Luke, we need to talk about some of the spellings that you've done.
Our Chicago pick is in, and that is Diapollo S. Leon Schweingruber out of Colorado. He fell a little bit late. I want to say he's a ISFL dude. There's too many ISFL dudes, man.
Yeah.
But another ISFL dude, earning well, well connected. I think Corey knows him pretty well.
I don't know about that, but the ISFL bit for sure. Like the difference, I think, with him compared to a lot of some of the other ISFL picks that we've talked on and on about is that he actually joined ISFL very shortly right before the SHL.
Oh, okay, so he kind of joined
like
those together.
Yeah, had like a bunch of sim league experience coming in as like a veteran, knowing exactly how things work. It just happened to be that he found the ISFL first, and it sounded like hockey was maybe more of his main interest. So
okay,
it was only natural to find the SHL after that.
Yeah, no, we've seen a couple of those situations, every season where somebody will like join a sim league, find out that it's a ton of fun, and immediately see what else they can get involved with, which obviously carries its own little level of risk, but it's nice. Like it shows a clear drive and interest to participate and be involved in these kinds of things.
Yeah, it sounded like he, at least when we had originally talked prior to the J draft, was kind of interested in trying to figure out his own build. So I hope he does find something, because more diversity in builds for this league is only a good thing.
Yeah. There is now only one, I think. There's one player over 300 TPE still on the board, and that is Sidis or Bjorn Jacobsen. Obviously, Sidis has some recent history in the SHL where he was a retired out of Anaheim after not being super high in TPE compared to his class, recreated. That obviously hurt his draft stock in the J and probably a little bit in the SHL as well. But they've got a solid reputation from the ISFL. Do you think that somebody's looking at a steal coming up?
I think someone. Yeah, I think he'll be a pretty good value pick for wherever he lands.
Yeah, as I already have the pick is in graphic, it is Bjorn Jacobsen. I didn't realize it until I checked the post, but out of QCC, Sidis, as we were just talking about, has done well in earning. Has seemed to have found a good spot for himself in QCC. There was obviously some hesitations around the league, around the J for picking him up. He fell down to 40th overall, despite being an earning and active recreate in theory. To go top 30, I think is honestly fair and pretty good for in his case. I can't be too upset if I'm going that early, given what all had happened with the number of UDFAs that came in.
Yeah, I think even though the retirement thing tanked his stock in the J, but I think this is a really good value for San Francisco, and Sidis should be landing in a good spot. It's an up-and-coming team with San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Now he'll be part of this brand new core that they're building too.
Yeah, they've got quite the group of defensemen going. Just including this draft alone, you've got again Keenan. They've got many hands. Himself being the third defenseman, adding on to a group that already has Ricard Berg or Agent Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Ruggs McGoo still earning there. I think maybe Nathan Thomas could potentially still continue to make their way up, but again, that's quite a few defensemen. So value-wise, it's great.
Yeah, no, they're one of the. You see a lot of these retooling and rebuilding teams getting a huge defensive core lined up. Obviously, with the idea that expansion could be when their team is good, you want to have that many good defensemen available. But they also seem to really prioritize these defensemen. The pick is in from Toronto, the ninth pick in round 2. It is out of toast, Jesse Trudeau. Ham, what can you tell me about Jesse?
After a tragic loss of our toast, early call up to Minnesota, I believe only spent 3 seasons with us.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I think I'm positive he was part of our cup run. At this point, it's all starting to blend together. We were out of toast, and obviously that was enough to say that we need to make this pick.
Yeah.
On a real note, though,
Yeah, go ahead.
He's been great. Well, it's tough for him sometimes to spend as much time on Discord on the site like the rest of us who work from home.
Mm-hmm.
His job kind of keeps him busy throughout the day, but he still continues to put in the time and effort when I could imagine anybody else being too exhausted to bother wanting to add an update at the end of the week or continue to grind it out, and said maybe just relax, play video games. But he's still committed, so I think that's a really good sign considering where he's being picked and where he's going to.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that it's not at all a pipeline pick, but I think it's a good pick overall. I think that he'll fit into Toronto's sort of schedule pretty well. Obviously they don't have they didn't have a first round pick, and they're in a weird spot where they're not. They had a big clump of prospects, and now that's kind of thinning out. But he should be coming in at a good time for Toronto.
Yeah, they I think have a fully active roster. That even includes the backup position. So it's not a bad thing for them to pick a player that they know they'll want to keep down for a little bit longer, because there's no real rush to try and replace anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he'll have plenty of time to develop. So you don't have to worry about out of toast leaving you guys anytime soon, I guess.
Not gonna be upset about that. He's great to have around. Not too many Sens fans, but
mm-hmm.
Nice when you see one.
The pick is in for one of the ones that was guaranteed with the rules about co-GMs and their draft picks. Do I announce it with? Yeah, hashtag ARI Izzy.
With hashtag, you have to say it, leave a space,
do
anything for a second, and then finish the rest, like how the FA Times has been doing it.
Hashtag ARI Izzy. Mike Izzy, back to Calgary. Obviously, has to go there. Izzy, 10 out of 10 user for the site. Obviously, would be a top 6-ish guy in the class, was for the J draft, but would definitely still be highly prioritized if it wasn't for him being a co-GM. What's your favorite Izzy memory?
It's not a good one, and it's just because of his sig like that. I can't get it.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
I haven't had a chance to go to therapy for it, so it's there.
I mean, the phone therapy options exist.
Yeah, the hashtag when everybody realized that it broke the sim.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, there's not too much to say about this pick because they.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to. I am.
Oh man, we have to pick somebody whose last player was 2K earning.
Sure, by Calgary, I'm a little surprised they didn't trade down, but maybe they couldn't find a taker.
Yeah. I mean, it's rough because like nobody's like super eager to give them more value like that. Like you'd rather just trade with like San Francisco, who has all the 4th-round picks ever.
I suppose in a good sense, also congratulate to Mike Izzy for, I believe, reaching the Hall of Fame just very recently.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, he was in the Hall of Fame ceremony a couple days ago. Him, Lagerfield, and Joe actually all made it to the Hall of Fame. Which I mean, that's a power collection of users if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, to try and imagine it as all of us are new users to trying to get into a class like that or a collection like that. That seems like the bar is just continue going to get higher and higher.
Mm-hmm. Atlanta's pick is in 29th overall. It is Captain Camel or Paul Binder out of Anchorage. Anchorage also is having a lot of picks, I'm realizing. But a great defensive winger. Not been the most active as far as media. I haven't seen their name come up that often. Do either of you guys have a scouting experience with them or no?
I talked to him before the J draft, and I believe he's actually, again, one of those rare true first gens.
I thought you were going to say actually a camel. I was about to... Come on, man.
Maybe. I don't have any proof on whether he is or he isn't, so I'm not going to deny it one way or another. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because he, hopefully, by the sounds of it, I thought he'd be a great fit. So I'm kind of wondering what sets him apart. Because I think if you can get somebody who is a pure first gen and really excited in the league, that's probably the best pick that you can get. Somebody who
for
has
sure.
no other commitments. Their higher devotion just into this. It feels like trying to find the best cult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not even like they don't have a lot of other things going on. It's like it's so hard to you can't replicate the interest that you first have as a first gen in the league. Like even the most dedicated recreates like Teddy and Izzy, like there's something like genuine and like pure and passionate about like these first gens that like stick with the league and are super into it. And it's surprising that like that value kind of got taken for granted a little bit this draft.
Yeah, it's just maybe the saturation I feel of sim leagues, reaching more and more people.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so many you can get out to. And as Hot Dog just pointed out, Atlanta Animals continues this trend with Captain Camel.
Oh yeah, you're right. Man, how did we not catch that?
I'm already looking through the rest of the list. I spot a few more picks that I swear to God they're going to make just for the sake of the memes.
Christopher Ford, Flamingo, Keenan's 6th best available right now.
There's Blood Pig. I know he hasn't updated or been on the site, but Hot Dog, I want to do it.
Baltimore's pick is in. It is Rabute Guilliman. I don't know. Apologies for butchering that. Out of Kelowna, user Hazak. A guy that kind of slipped from his J draft. 300 TPE, 20 mil in the bank almost. Was useful for Kelowna, as you can see, like led all rookies in shorthanded time on ice. Like I remember seeing them here and there. Kind of surprised to see somebody with 300 TPE, or I guess 292 at the time that I compiled everything, falling all the way down to 30th.
Yeah, real strange one, just because I think they've recreated twice. They were part of our S53 class.
Oh, really?
Did not. Yeah, they did not last very long at all, maybe 180-ish TPE.
What was their player name?
They were in Vancouver, if I remember correctly. I
really?
Double check and go through the thing. But
boom,
yeah, they
definitely
were not part of our class for very long.
Okay.
I wonder if Boom will recognize it.
Hang on, let me just click on. I'm just searching on the site. So
Yeah, you're good.
their player was Ragnar Skalagrimson.
I do remember that name.
I think he was Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado. That's more like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick for Baltimore, even though it's another center. When you have a chance to get a 300 TP player this late, you do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, obviously, they've shown that they are doing better with the site than before. So, like, if you've surpassed that, you're feeling pretty good about the pick at that point. Like, you're like, yeah, I feel pretty good about this.
Yeah. So I was wrong in saying that they recreated before. Their first time was with our class.
Okay.
But since this particular player creation, they've done media. I think they've done a little bit of graphics. So it's kind of surprising. You know, they've shown the capability to generate money, maybe not a bunch at once, but at least that they're willing to do some of it. So
Yeah.
Baltimore seems to have got a lot of value here.
For sure. Manhattan's pick is in. Their second pick of the draft is Jan Dolph, Lord Bolo out of Detroit. Signed as a UDFA. I think this was after Carolina was basically full and not looking to pick up UDFAs, so I didn't even have a chance to talk to him. Ham, did you have an opportunity to? I know you were scouring for UDFAs too.
Yeah, I was definitely sitting on that market for all season, really. And I had tried to reach out to them, but they had not responded. They were referred to the site by someone on Detroit. I want to say it was either Zoltan or was it Ranger Jazz? I'm pretty sure it was Zoltan. Either way, unsurprising that they end up in Detroit. But it seems like ever since they got on, they've been right up there in terms of max earning, despite being starting a little behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually did try and sign Lord Bolo right after the draft, but they ended up going with Detroit now, and looks like they're doing quite well for themselves.
Yeah, no, like it, and like obviously, like Detroit's got a solid locker room environment, and like any UDFA that ends up there is gonna feel pretty all right and get pretty involved in the league, I think.
It was actually Ranger Jassy though who referred them. So
Oh, really?
if only they were around to talk about it.
Let's see here. It's LAP's pick, isn't it? LAP is on the clock. This is actually a weird one because like we had a list of people that we wanted, and as like Fuzz is like, yeah, maybe like Canada Ice will fall. And I'm like, there's no chance, dude. But yeah, it was. We really liked the value that we saw in the draft class overall. And traded out of next season's second into this season's second to try and pick up on some of that because we really liked what we saw.
Are we actually? I think we've caught up with the thread now. Hey, it's starting to really slow down.
We're close. We're a couple behind still. But yeah, that pick is in, and it is continuing the pipeline, I'll say. It is Golden Face, DeWalt 27 out of Carolina. DeWalt's another ISFL dude. We picked Rotz, Ships, and DeWalt all up together to go with Rev 5, who we also had as a UDFA. DeWalt's been pretty good. He was in Minnesota with me in the DSFL, or he's part of Minnesota's organization in the DSFL, so we got to know each other simultaneously. Feel good about the value here as long as he continues to stay interested in the SHL, which he seems to have had. Like he messaged me earlier this week, like, "Hey, when like a week and change ago," because he's used to the ISFL timelines. He's like, "Hey, why? When should I expect to hear from some of these SHL GMs?" And I was like, "Oh, like they procrastinate a ton. Like you're not going to hear from them for like another couple days, even. Not that they don't want to talk to you. It's just that none of them have even started looking at the draft yet." So like that kind of interaction, specifically to me, showed that he was still interested in like seeing what the league had to offer, was in enjoying his time here and still paying attention to it. So I'm actually really comfortable with this pick.
Yeah, having that Carolina LAP pipeline, I wonder with the recent hiring of Ace if we're going to start to see a New England one from Anaheim, Minnesota from Maine into potentially Minnesota.
Well,
There's a lot of interesting ones.
Zomp also is an Anaheim guy.
Yep.
And
That
went to
really
New
adds to it as
England.
well.
So like Ace and Zomp knew each other before they even had GM roles in Anaheim. So that seems like a very clear pipeline that'll get set up. Yeah, overall happy with Golden Face. He's been good in Carolina. Although it's like clearly like as good as like I've probably been to him in Minnesota, where I don't really pay that much attention, but I do all right for the team. It's hard to balance being active in a team's war room and like the management of that team while also earning well in another. So as long as he wants to keep with the SHL, we'll be thrilled to have him. Also, like, there's the connection that, like, Sloth, as he's excited in the chat, Sloth knows him pretty well from the ISFL, too.
I didn't realize that Golden Face was his particular render. I feel that more often than the ISFL sees that quote-unquote more fun ones, so it's kind of nice to see a little bit of that come over. Like Puddles, O'Duck, and the like.
Yeah. No, they have a lot of fun. They have some really talented artists over in the ISFL that do SIGs and draft cards and stuff. So they get all sorts of weird player likenesses. Speaking of that, though, the next Winnipeg pick is in, continuing their ISFL pipeline. It's David S. Pumpkins, or Rev, out of Anchorage. The ISFL names in this class go super deep. Rev's another one like DeWalt that I think is obviously a secondary league for the SHL, but is a good value pick in the mid to late second round, as long as you're like getting somebody that continues to stay at least interested and you can poke them about doing an update here and there. So I think that's what's up?
He is another member of that Dallas group. So
yeah, it makes sense that
makes sense to keep them together.
Mm-hmm. Apologies also if you were expecting us to talk about trades. I know I mentioned that to a few
There's
people.
There's somebody that I know.
We're not prepared. I like we had all the stuff in place, but we just weren't prepared for how quickly the draft was going to fly. And we don't have the trade boards fully prepared to talk about, I guess. But yeah, I'm wondering now how many more ISFL dudes there are. Simo is still there. BJK Man, I think, is one. Let's see. Rapid Eagle is one.
Eagle, yeah.
Oh, Rapid Eagle's got to be a prime candidate for Atlanta, right?
Yeah, Atlanta. Animals. They're queuing it up, trading up to make sure they pick them up. I think that's all I can really see that stands out.
Yeah. And some updates. We do have a couple teams already bowing out, getting what they wanted. New England done. That's on there. Calgary is also finished after picking up Izzy. Buffalo's pick is in. There seems to be a little bit. Yeah. Buffalo's pick is in. It is Leon Athanasios. Sorry. Username. What's up?
I think it's Athanasiou.
Maybe, yeah. I'm terrible with names, as Zone and others can attest to. User Spartan out of Newfoundland. Ham, what you got for me?
UDFA, like it seems to be quite a few of them in this particular draft.
Yeah,
they are a GM in the VHL, so this is a little bit different. Yeah, so a slight twist on things. I think for them, it was kind of funny to hear them kind of lament that that he didn't hear as much interest in the draft but it's not like he hasn't been continuing to update. I think there was a period where he was doing all the tasks and just kind of, forgot to put them all in, and I think it was during the playoffs. So he was sitting on something like a 50 TPE update or along those lines.
Okay.
So if people were looking at the list straightly at TPE, he'd be right at the bottom at about 230.
Yep, that's what we have him at.
For this weekend would show him at much higher than that. So
okay, so it's a prime Buffalo pick.
Yeah, one of those flying under the radar for just no other reason than just didn't happen to update until just yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will make it the third Newfoundland to Buffalo pick. So while we do joke about Newfoundland to Chicago, it seems like there might be a Buffalo connection in that regard as well.
Yeah. Who all do you have in Newfoundland that goes to Buffalo now?
We have Luffy, being an old alum, I believe, of the Lethbridge Lions. We have Lime, of course.
Oh yeah, I forgot Lime exists.
Yeah, so there's enough there that it's almost part Team Japan, part Chicago and Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. Our next pick from San Francisco is in. Speaking of funny renders from the ISFL, Greg Davies, BJK man. Honestly, impressive TPE and bank numbers at the end of a 18-team second round. Was another one of those guys from St. Louis that I expected to go higher, maybe if not the first round, top of the second quality player that just kept sliding down the boards. So San Francisco's got to be thrilled, right?
Another one for them, hey.
Mm-hmm. Although finally not a defenseman going to San Francisco.
Yeah. I think the weird thing with him that I noticed, and not to think with him personally, is that I was keeping track of a lot of the picks from last draft, just with it being my first draft, and kind of saying, hey, who could we have taken instead? Who's panning out? Who's not? And he was one of the guys that I know that my scouts were really high on, but nonetheless, they ended up going to St. Louis. So for the last half of the season,
he's saying like he had a choice. Yeah, he went to St. Louis.
We could have, but I'm just going to say I'm happy with where we're at. He had been banking for about half of the season.
Okay.
Which I don't know why. They were doing all the tasks. I think they did like the rookie task, did everything. Like they were really not missing out on stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at their TP being
just didn't get update threads together
there, but they just banked it.
Huh.
So I was just kind of wondering, like,
were they updating and banking or?
Yeah, updating and banking. They had, now that I checked, just spent it all. So,
okay.
There's no big thing, but it was just one of those weird things that I noticed that happened to be a thing.
Sure. I mean, I think part of that also might come from like there's a difference in like how you perform as a rookie in the ISFL versus the SHL. Like ISFL, you do like some pre-draft stuff and you're pretty set for a little while. But we've got our second of three GM picks this draft. As expected, at the end of the second round, Jean-Luc Zidane, Nick Tox, obviously was in St. Louis as his old team that he GM'd. Now he's going to the team that he co-GMs. Never really got to interact with Nick as a peer or didn't really talk to him in scouting either. But he actually his old player actually joined LAP for our playoff run this past season. And he was actually really fun to get to talk to and get to know a little better.
Yeah. They kind of picked the perfect time to do that recreating, just because New Orleans is definitely struggling with having to try to reach for the cup over the last several seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they've got, what is this, going to be their fourth pick of this draft?
Yeah,
it's not a bad hole to come out of.
No, they've got a really strong new core that they're assembling, and like Nick Tox is going to sort of finalize that. But you got Asmadden, Zane, Ships, and now Nick Tox as this class, and they had a huge class last season. So like they're definitely in the right spot as far as putting together a new core. And now it's just a matter of waiting for that to really take hold and become relevant.
with Joe also recreating, they're going to have both of their GMs on what will probably be pretty good contracts and young players that they can rely on for the rebuild.
How do you guys feel about that, actually, having both GMs on similar player timelines versus like having one that's like having them like 8 years, 9 seasons apart? Do you think it makes much of a difference either way?
It seems to fit with what they're trying to do with their retool and bringing in a lot of prospects. And they still have a couple of top pieces, so they're not like they still have Lyle Odelane, who is like a 2000 TP guy. And then they've got other like high TP players like Moyer, Cloutier, all in that 1500 range.
No, I think you made a good point with the GMs creating around the same time makes it easier to have a defined core, because you're getting a very good player in the second round with your auto pick, and then you get the GM for free. Like, that seems like a solid way to say, hey, this is a timeline that we're going to commit to.
Yeah, and in sort of the other scenario, while there are some merits to having them kind of offset, so that you can say, hey, we've got a GM on a lower contract amount, we can save the hometown discount for somebody else, or they can play less minutes. The most awkward thing would be, hey, when your window is finished and then one of your GM's players are starting to come into their prime, then what do you do next? Yeah,
I guess the idea is that, like, if you're doing that, you're trying not to have like a hard window. You've been a GM here for a while, and you've got like a solid enough, steady contending team. It doesn't obviously fit with like the idea that you should try and peak for a cup, but I think that as you see more parity in the league, you might see a couple more teams start to shift that way into staying regularly, consistently a playoff team. The first pick of round 3 is in, though, for San Francisco. It is Mr. Rihu, geriatric out of Kelowna. Has been a solid piece of the JHO as an intern. So like Smith has gotten to interact with him here and there through that, because they both hang out in the head office, not head office, but the GM chat. So like there's that connection. Solid bank, fluctuating activity sometimes. I know that they've been hitting some real life stuff where they've been in and out like on a weekly basis, but assuming that they stick and are like, assuming they stick, they could be a really good pick. And again, not a defenseman, so San Francisco's got to be up against their defensive threshold at this point. They just got to keep going for forwards, right?
I think at this point it's more about just that best value, and they continue to pick up the players who, you know, for a lot of things you can't really control, and for the users themselves, they can't control their real life in terms of stopping them to earn. At least for both Bjorn Jacobson and Geriatric, they both have shown the capability to max earn.
Yeah.
Whether there's been reasons that stopped in the past, that is probably why they fell, but they could continue to max earn. So even if it comes in spurts, it might be equivalent to sort of a mid-earning player.
Yeah.
If it does all kind of pan out and they just keep max earning from this point forward, then you know what, they've got a great player at such a low pick. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those huge or high rewards, really low risk when you're talking about at this point of the draft.
Mm-hmm. Hamilton, sorry, go ahead.
Ryu does have a previous recreate that didn't reach during a TP, so that might be part of it. But I do think San Francisco got really good value at this stage in the draft.
For sure. Hamilton's third round pick is in, 38th overall. And that is Austin Smith out of Vancouver. He was a later round pick for you guys. Boom. Has he been? Obviously, there's a lot of ISFL dudes kind of bumping him down the draft board. Do you think you got a pretty good steal at 48? And how do you think Hamilton did here?
Yep, the running joke of even more Whalers players going to the Hamilton, but yeah, Austin's been really good in our locker room, active. He's a pretty steady earner, and yeah, he was mostly on our third line for this rookie season, but he was still really good. Like 20, I think he got like 13 goals, which was actually pretty high on our team. And
Yeah, no, he was actually, as it's on stream right now, he's the fourth rookie goal scorer with
yeah,
13.
but yeah, he's been really good to have around in the locker room, and I think he'll looking forward to having him around.
No, that's definitely an understated pipeline, I think. That it's kind of like come and gone every once in a while, but like it's still it's a notable pipeline from SHL to the J, or from J to the SHL.
Quick note on the San Francisco bit that we were just chatting about.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if they might start to develop a bit of like a team identity, being like, we're the ones who are always been like unappreciated, always the ones that are being undervaluated, like kind of having that chip on their shoulder to kind of rally around that identity, so that when they do grow up, they have that sense of camaraderie and that like, hey, we're gonna be the group that proves everybody wrong, thinking that we were either not going to make it or we're not a good team or any sort of stuff like that. So
Yeah. The first pass of the draft is in. If you were looking at the draft board, it was Tampa. So if you picked the Atlantic Division for the team that would pass first, congratulations. The pick is in from the next team up, Minnesota, and it is a player making his journey to the SHL over from the NHL. Travis Konechny is headed to Kelowna. Not headed to Minnesota from Kelowna. Apologies. They were somebody that we liked in Carolina going into the draft, but we had such a we obviously have a big Metro Division fan base in Carolina, so we were excited to have that aspect. We had a couple of Flyers fans, but it didn't pan out. He seemed like a really cool dude, though. But I think, as we were talking about Minnesota getting good value later in drafts and having guys just kind of sneak down to them, like you don't get the 15 mil as a rookie without being invested in the site. So like props to him for that. Like I think Minnesota is going to feel really happy with that kind of pick, 40th overall.
yeah, it's definitely some potential to kind of continue on. It's the most concerning when they hit that zero and then that kind of all falls on them to think about, okay, what's next?
Yeah,
At
like we
least there's a
were
little
talking
bit
about
of a
with the rookie
buffer.
tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, I think Minnesota is going to be pretty happy with that. I guess, like, especially in the third round, you can't really worry about be like super choosy. Like if they have passion for the league, sometimes it'll happen and sometimes it won't. But they've got some good people in that locker room that can really kind of guide these rookies along. 41 is also in as we're pulling that together. As all the teams are now passing, Toronto's done, Minnesota's done, Buffalo's done, Texas is done, New England is done, Calgary's done. Who do you think is going to be the last team to be making picks?
That's a tough one because you have the growing concern of budget constraints. Just to assign prospects
Yeah.
alone seems like a tough thing for some teams to do. Like we just saw New England recently let go of quite a few players, as well as cut some active ones. Well, cut some inactive ones, I guess. It's such a like dog eat dog world out there, with you needing to maximize every dollar you make. While yes, somebody could make a pick, generally you should have some intention of signing them, unless you're Buffalo from a couple of seasons ago and still ended up with ridiculous value.
Yeah.
I'm just on an anti-Buffalo thing all night.
That was such a mess for us on the JGM side.
Oh yeah,
that
was miserable. I remember I had it was Bluntman that was a part of that, and we were just like, especially with him being a goalie, we were just like, hey, what's going on with this?
Yeah. So last team to make a pick, like you might think that it could be a team like San Francisco who's gonna try to collect as many prospects as they can, but they have a lot already. At some point, they're gonna just say they're happy with who they have.
Yeah,
give them the money instead of spending a little bit more on yet another unknown.
Mm-hmm. Seattle's next pick is in, and you could expect that, like with it being a GM pick, that they could have picked Tig later. And gone and aimed for something like trading for the 69th pick or doing something else memey, but Tig's off the board at 42. I mean, obviously, like Tig's insanely valuable just as a user, but great locker room guy, great person to just hang out and talk to. One of my favorite people that I've interacted with that I've never shared a team with, I would say. Done great things around the league, and get your guy for free.
Yeah, I know this is all like a moot point, but just for the sake of wondering if, again, like I brought up earlier, all these GMs, Izzy, Nick, Tig included, if they were all available for selection, if you were Tampa Bay, does the decision become that much harder, or are you still steadfast Teddy at number one?
I think I try and trade to number 2, and I take either Tig or Teddy, who's ever there. No offense to like Nick and Izzy, who would easily go 3-4. But like I've got a good rapport with Tig, and if I was building a team, I would want him there.
Yeah, it's hard to go around with any one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But again, kind of goes to show that how fortunate Tampa Bay is to have won the lottery.
Yeah. I know, obviously, we had the live reacts on Hockey Talk tonight. Smith was understandably crushed to lose the lottery, and Dwight was very excited. I'm sure that they had their fair share of, hey, what's it cost to go from number 2 to number 1?
Yeah. If only those discussions were out in the open, that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't say they've told me a lot, but I can't imagine there weren't at least some conversations about that. Manhattan is next because Atlanta has passed, and that pick is in. Boom. What can you tell me about Akko Zilli, who's going to Manhattan?
So we signed him as a undrafted free agent right before the start of the season. We actually didn't have a fourth center, so we targeted him. He hasn't been around a ton in the locker room in the Discord, but he's a really consistent earner so far, and I think Manhattan's getting pretty good value here, and I think especially if they can get him to talk some more, they're getting a steal.
There's honestly Luke's pretty active in your in Vancouver's locker room, right?
He's around, yeah.
Yeah, he sees things. It's definitely felt between name redacted and picks like this, so there's definitely a little bit of a Vancouver to Manhattan connection that's always kind of lingered.
And as we were joking, he really liked Many Hands.
Yeah. No, I think he actually did like Many Hands.
Yeah, and he was in the locker room and got to see some of that dynamic, which is part of it.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure, like, obviously if you're a GM, you're going to have a blast just watching that unfold. More teams passing on the draft now. Seattle's done. Minnesota's done. I said that. NOLA, Manhattan's now done. Edmonton's done. LAP is out. A couple more picks to make, a couple more players to go off the board, I think. What was your pick that you like them? A pick that your team didn't make that you like the most?
I think I would have to go with the. Oh, I'm gonna go with the Atlanta and the Puddles of Duck. Not because I'm a big fan of them, but I think from what I've seen, like there's so many avenues of earning money from media, graphics, and now Twitter with that nice buff that it's received. So thanks HO for that. Surprisingly, not a lot of people are still using it, and especially with rookies who have such a low cost for training that if they were to use it from day one, they're still coming out ahead. That adds to their income for down the road. I believe Puddles was one of those few players that were doing Twitter, so that's a really positive thing. So even if they're not necessarily going to be one to produce a lot of media, which so far a lot of the prospects in this draft haven't shown yet, it still bodes well that he's got some form of income.
Yeah, no, regularly doing Twitter, like I was talking about again on Hockey Talk at one point, is a great way to get like a mid-earning player. Like you can hit like 1300 pretty steadily and stay up above it between like 13 and 15 for a good like 6-7 seasons. Peak at like 1600, and that's like very good for not a lot of investment.
Yeah, and I think it's another way of showing time commitment to the league, because remembering to tweet every day, and I'm sure some people have their tweet decks set to tweet for 200 days straight, it's still a little bit of time spent in your day to think about the SHL, when there are very many people that just will not sign on for days. They'll come and do their stuff, and that's fine. But if you're kind of coming and looking at like a first round pick, then it kind of has different standards.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm curious. So it looks like the only teams that are left are Winnipeg and Chicago that haven't.
I think so, yes.
Which is interesting because there's still a couple of names left on the board.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Simo, Scoresburg, Grapehead.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Grapehead, I think, is inactive. So
yeah, he's been fluctuating again.
But I am pretty surprised that Simo and Forsberg haven't gone off the board yet.
Yeah, we do have a pick in from Winnipeg, and it is Dylan JJ, Max Mueller. Obviously, Dylan, a well-established SHL member, we'll say. Kind of flames in and out on players, which explains like being so far down in the draft. But good to see an opportunity here, especially with a very solid young core that might keep him engaged. Oh yeah, Simo did mention, as Smith has mentioned, he told me yesterday, Simo's not telling teams not to draft him. He's going to cycle through as a J player constantly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he said he was going to cycle through repeatedly, but at the very least, definitely not planning on a long career.
Okay, so, that's fair. I guess I don't know if he's cycling or not.
It'll be. I was talking with him and saying, hey, there might be the possibility that somebody will just, take a flyer just because he does have a pretty positive reputation across PBE, ISFL.
Yeah.
And that maybe if he's in the right place, he'll kind of continue to earn, and it's just a free pickup that everybody else assumed was a nothing asset. But looking increasingly like they're going to respect his wishes and kind of let him do his thing, so that maybe if he makes another trip around, then they'll look at it then.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question for Dylan, who's apparently in chat, wanting to hear us talk about it more. I don't know what his connection is with Winnipeg, if he does have any previous ones. I wonder if that will make it a lot easier for him to build, who knows, the next Hall of Fame player.
And while we wait for Dylan's answer, I want to ask you guys, who is your player that surprisingly fell the farthest. Who did you think was going to go way earlier than when they got picked?
Probably a combination of Greg Davies and maybe Leon Schweingruber. I think both of those have some argument for being close to the top of the second round, if not the first round itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say, right in the first round you see all the other players up there, but if we're talking about the biggest drops and not just Billy Brooks, who could have gone maybe 5-10 spots higher,
yeah,
those would probably be my picks.
I actually, I'll say I'm a little surprised that it wasn't Vandy at 16. And I'm a little surprised that, honestly, Travis Konechny and Austin Smith both fell into the third round.
Yeah, Travis Konechny for sure.
Yeah, Greg Davies and Billy Brooks were the ones that surprised me that they just fell. They both fell pretty far in the drafts.
Mm-hmm. Give me 1 second because I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the draft.
I'll just kind of go on my little thing here.
Yeah, go for it.
The J draft of this particular group, I remember it being quite large. We had about 90 plus prospects on the list.
Yeah.
And obviously with inactives and whatever, once you weed it out, it looked like by the time we were done selecting people, the J had hit about 70-ish players, a shade under, I would say, maybe 68 or so.
Yeah.
70 is fine. So to go from 70 to how many picks are we in right now? Something like 40 when you count all the skips.
Mm-hmm.
45. It's pretty good, honestly, considering how many that it's natural for people to drop off and how many of them are actually quite high TP. So as much as a lot of GMs might lament that the rookie tasks have made it difficult to scout these players in terms of determining how successful they are long term.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping, and this is actually indicative, that there are more people sticking around because they have that little boost to at least see themselves get the full experience of being drafted from the J to the SHL.
I remember part of it was also with our class, the numbers were, like, I guess in the SMJHL the numbers were a bit inflated because of the Anaheim Newfoundland, but yeah, we did have a very deep class for a Reddit.
Yeah. No, our class was obscenely deep, honestly. We do have the 69th pick in. It is a little bit of a 69th pick overall, though. It is Fufu Finucci out of he was a St. Louis pick, I think, originally, but he never made it past 155. But that pick was made. And then we have our last pick of the draft, which is now in. As we wait for that to announce. What team do you guys think had the best draft? Ham?
I think New Orleans is probably the easy answer, just by nature of having 3 first-round picks.
Sure.
I think going in a little bit deeper, Buffalo looks like they had a pretty good one. I want to say San Francisco with a lot of those smart, later picks, because they didn't have a lot early. They had the 2nd overall, they had the 19th overall, but then they still managed to pick up quite a few people who would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Like at 26 and 35 and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give it to San Francisco above everybody else, just because they made more than what they had.
For sure. No, I think that they didn't do a lot, but they didn't have to, and they found a lot of value there.
Yeah.
Agreed with that, because while New Orleans did have the 3 firsts, San Francisco definitely did more with less, I'd say.
For sure. Go
I
ahead.
think if we had to pick a loser of the draft, I'm just gonna jump ahead onto the other side. It's gotta be Atlanta. They only picked up how many animals we got here? We got one duck, one camel. I was expecting more than that. Hot dog. I'm kind of disappointed.
Yeah, for sure. I think San Francisco honestly did really well. I think I can't really identify a team that had like a any big missed opportunities. I would say. I think that like we were talking about before, the draft value is a little bit all over the place. So it's hard to really identify somebody that was like, yeah, you didn't do great in what you were doing. I think overall most teams are leaving this draft pretty happy. Our last pick is in, though. Everybody else has passed, and Chicago has confirmed that they're passing after this. It is the one and only Cole Carter, boom check. Boom, there it is. Chicago gets their guy.
CC2 round 2.
Yeah, CC2 part 2, Carter Boogaloo. It'll be interesting to see how Boomcheck pans out with this player, but obviously an SHL legend to some extent. It'll be fun to see how that goes. I also just realized that it's got just constant Chicago's in the draft pick next up, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Should probably also, he hasn't logged in since the beginning of December.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
Chicago's got ways to get in touch with them, I'm sure. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure they can get a hold of him.
yeah, and it could just be he comes back, finds out he's back on Chicago, and gets back with it again.
He knows. I think I'm positive he knows. But yeah, like the question is, even if he has the Discord awareness or participation, how much does that translate to the site? Still, though, it's going to be kind of a great reuniting of a site legend and one of the teams that he was on.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, we are talking about a 4th round pick, so there's really no risk here.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you are around and didn't see your name get picked, apologies. I don't think anybody active that was expecting to get drafted. I don't know the full story on Scoresburg, I guess, but yeah, congratulations to everybody. I hope you enjoy your new teams. Zoltan is saying hi if you check out the ticker. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the SHL season 58 SHL draft. We were glad to kind of do this up a little bit fancier. One of the big things that I was pushing for as when I got handed the events department was, hey, how can we rival the ISFL but keep it a live draft? And we're getting close, I think. But yeah, stay tuned to what more the events team can pull off. Thank you so much. First of all, Zoltan, Jace, you dealt with a lot of nonsense the last couple days. Aren't getting the recognition maybe, even though you're on the graphics and stuff. I really appreciate what you did. Thank you, Boom and Ham, for coming out and talking more than you expected to, because Phalanx wasn't here.
All right.
Happy to-
Yeah. Now we get to do this again tomorrow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I have to do more scouting. I just remembered. But yeah, Alcohol will be doing something similar on the J side of things. So you can look forward to that. And thank you guys for spending your evening with us. Yeah. Thank you guys, and have a good night.